Don Anderson here, aka Donnie Money. I wanted to bring this video to you today because a lot of people are facing the same thing. A lot of people in that 35-year-old age range all the way up to maybe 50 years old. You know, I was sitting in the sauna yesterday, well, the day before yesterday at my gym, wrapping up, just talking to a few people. And one gentleman, high income earner, actually is in IT or the IT industry, earns, let's just say, 6 figures a year, and was just saying how his affordability or his cost of living has changed because his home has went up about 35 to 40% in value. So that means property taxes go up. We're in the great state of Texas, and the area that I'm talking about just happens to have great schools, great roads, etc., which means higher property taxes. But nevertheless, he was just going into detail like, man, I'm having a hard time. I don't want to sell my house. I have all this income, but I don't know what I'm doing because, again, my things are hit me for a loop. Homeowners insurance is up. Property taxes are up. So now I got to figure out inflation, just everyday inflation, gas, etc., food, clothes, cost of living in general is up. So what do I do? So I just had a conversation with him, and I said, hey, you're only 45 years old and you still have a high income, a pretty decent income. Have you considered practicing a different way of spending? He said, no, no one ever taught me really about finances or how to spend. Every time I made a little bit more money, I bought a little more. But I've went through things in life such as divorce, etc., and I've actually ended up, losing money over time and still just keeping my head above water. So the funny thing about that, it's not really funny, but when I have conversations with anybody, whether it's in my business as a loan officer, when I speak with people doing financial consultations regarding, preparing for home ownership, what people tend to tell me is, I only make $60,000, $70,000 a year, and I never have enough money to save or invest. Well, if you, let's say, John, for the sake of this video, the guy I was talking to in the sauna, let's say he makes $180,000 a year. John has earned $180,000 a year consecutively for at least the last 7 years. You may earn $60,000 to $90,000 a year, but both you and John are in the same place. John doesn't have a savings. Cost of living keeps going up. John doesn't have money in his bank account, and John hasn't prepared for retirement. John doesn't want to sell his house. What's the difference between him and the person making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000? They're the same person. You may say, well, no, they're not. He makes so much more money. He may be able to afford nicer things, go out to maybe nicer dinners. But at the end of the day, if you have the same amount in the bank account or the same amount in retirement savings, you are essentially the same person, which means you're not achieving your goals. And there's one thing about Father Time. Father Time is always going to catch up with us. One day, you will not be able to produce at the same level you are in your younger years, typically 55 and under. These are just facts. What if John had just taken for the last, let's say 10 years, well, no, let's use 15 years, and he put $1,000 away. Let's say he put $1,000 away per month invested in the S&P 500. If he would have taken $1,000 and invested in the S&P 500, which over the last decade has returned about 10%, even with all the ups and downs, has an annualized return of 10%, he would have invested about, I want to say it's about $141,000, but his total return on investment would have been $225,000 gained of interest. He would end up with about a balance of about $448,000. That's from investing $1,000 a month due to the power of compound interest. What about the person that's 20 investing $300 a month? Over a decade, 2 decades. Well, that same person would have over $1 million. See, it's the power of compound interest, but a lot of people weren't taught these things. When I wrote my book, The Assault on Middle Class America, way back in 2018, I was just getting started on this topic, even though I had been a financial advisor. I had no idea the depths of failed financial literacy that we face in the United States of America. What if you practice this rule? There's a rule that I honestly learned following a guy named Matt Sapala on YouTube. He's a PHP insurance guy. Not my cup of tea, but the guy's financial advice is impeccable. Also follow Pat Bet David. But these guys have a strategy where they don't spend all their money. It sounds strange. You may say, well, I don't spend all my money. Well, just think about the clothes you buy, the things you do every time you get paid. At the end of the day, most people spend all of their money, whether they're making a little bit of money or a lot of money, because of poor financial education. Your parents couldn't teach you because they did the same, or they did the best, you've heard this before, with the little that they had. So the interesting fact is the Matt Sapala's rule, or a rule that he talks about, is 50, 30, 20. So I don't know if you're religious or you're a Christian person or whatever you believe in, but there's 20% rule is to off top, 10% goes to tithe and offering. Another 10% goes to charitable giving. That's how I've started designing my life over this past year. 30% goes to investments. Now, 30% goes to investments. That could be real estate. That could be stocks, bonds. That could be putting money in your IRA or your IRA. That could be putting money in your 401k, your TSP. Any type of investable asset that's going to yield returns in the future. That could be in some type of universal index life insurance policy. A lot of guys sell that product. A lot of ladies and gentlemen sell that product, and it does help a lot of people. Back in my finance days, I got quite a few people that tell me about their returns. So I know that actually works, and it definitely compounds. Then there's the 50%. After you've taken care of everything else, your tithe, your charitable giving, your investment, setting up your future. Pick up a copy of the book Richest Man in Babylon, talks a lot about that. Investing for your future. Then the 50% you live on and use for entertainment. That means the roof over your head. That means maybe the clothes you like to buy, the trips you want to take, etc. I feel that if anyone practices this, and oh, by the way, that charitable giving. So the charitable giving, the tithing, and the giving to whatever your charity is, if it's set up properly, those are actually tax deductible strategies. So that's actually releasing some of your tax burden. So consider that. But nevertheless, when you set your life up in this manner, you give yourself time to earn more money by putting it away, not seeing it, if that makes sense. That 30% is working for you. Maybe you want to start a business in your 50s. Maybe you want to retire when you're 65. Well, if you start, even if you start at 45, that's going to give you 20 years of investing and compound interest. Now, because of your time horizon, if you're older, you're definitely going to want to be careful with that investment. So always seek the advice of a competent financial advisor, but you're going to have to do something. Because at the end of the day, you guys see the way the world works, the way the economy works, the way inflation works. You don't control any of that. But what you can control is how much money you put away from the future. So you're not the guy, John, having the conversation in a sauna about possibly selling the house that he loves because he can no longer afford it because of poor financial decisions. If this video you found this video interesting, my name is Don Anderson, aka Donnie Money. I'm a mortgage guy, former finance guy, and I'm here to educate you. Until next time.